A chilling touch, my friend's house. Let me briefly mention the main characters using the assumed names of my friends, A and B, and myself. First, let me provide some background information. The first thing, A and I were from different provinces, but our parents came to work in Bangkok, so we rented a house in Bangkok. A was from Chiang Mai, but his parents sent him to study and live with his uncle and aunt in Bangkok. The rented house where I lived was in the same alley as A's uncle and aunt's house. A and I have been friends since primary school, making us very close. I often stayed over at his house. A trusted me because I always helped him take care of the house. I had a little bit of conscience, thinking that since I was staying at their house, I should help out a bit with the housework. And he gave me a set of keys, one for the front gate and one for A's room door. The second thing, A's house. A's house was a single-story house, not very large. The entrance gate was a wrought iron sliding gate. When you opened the front gate, you would find the entrance to the house, which was a living room where A's uncle and aunt stayed. A wouldn't let us enter that way because his uncle didn't like outsiders walking through unless they were guests of the uncle and aunt. We would enter through the side, meaning after entering the front gate, between the front gate and the living room door, there was a walkway about 1 meter wide to walk to the left side of the house. On the left side of the house, there was an area about 1.5 meters wide. And then you would find the door to the sitting room. The sitting room could connect to the living room. When we went there, we would split into 2 groups. One group would sit and play computer games in the sitting room, and the other would go into A's room to watch movies. The sitting room and A's room were next to each other. The third thing, A's uncle and aunt. A's uncle and aunt were both over 60 years old. A's uncle was sick. I don't know what disease he had, but he had a strange routine. He would stand with his arms outstretched and shout loudly, "Get out!" The sound was very loud. The interval between each shout was about 30 seconds, and he would stand there doing that for about 30 minutes. At first, when we went to A's house, we were startled and wondered what was wrong with him. We didn't know if he was chasing us away or chasing away his illness. As for A's aunt, she had Alzheimer's. She would often come looking for A. When she didn't see A, she would come and ask until we couldn't help but chuckle. For example, one time I was sitting and playing on A's computer and A was in his room. His aunt came and asked, "Where's A?" I would say, "He's in his room, Auntie." Then she would go look in A's room. She would find A and then ask him, "Have you eaten?" After that, she would go back to sit in the living room. And after about 20 minutes, she would come back and ask, "Where's A?" She would come and ask like this about 5 to 6 times a day. But his aunt was a lovely person, small and soft-spoken. I often talked to her. She would like to tell stories about when she was young and Uncle took her traveling here and there and bought her flowers on Valentine's Day. Some of the stories she told I didn't understand. While she was telling stories, sometimes she would forget. She just forgot just now, but the stories she remembered clearly were about Uncle. As for Uncle, I never talked to him because he looked like a stern person, so I didn't dare to talk to him. Let's get to the story now. I'm 25 years old. Back when I was in high school, I attended an all-boys school in Bangkok. Our group of friends was quite large. When we skipped class, we would always go to A's house because A's house was quite free-spirited. Uncle and Auntie didn't pay much attention to A. They just let him be. It was enough for A to survive. Since we often skipped class and went to A's house being teenagers, we would talk loudly and disturb A's uncle and aunt a lot. Therefore, every time we went to A's house, Uncle would always come out and scold us as if he was unhappy that A brought so many friends home. When A went to talk to him, he would calm down, but sometimes they would argue a little. When the arguments became frequent, Uncle would lock the front gate to prevent us from entering. When friends came, they wouldn't be able to get in and would have to call A to open it for them. But if my friends came with me, we could enter right away because I had the key. But every time we entered A's house, we would quickly turn left and go straight into the sitting room without stopping to greet Uncle and Auntie because we were afraid of being kicked out. Time passed until we finished high school. We went our separate ways to university. I went to a university in a different province because my parents moved back home. As for I, he continued studying at a private university in Bangkok. When we started university, the time we spent meeting and contacting each other in the group became less, so we didn't know much about each other's lives. When I reached my second year and was about to enter my third year, during the school break, I came to Bangkok to meet up with my high school friends. But when I came to Bangkok, I couldn't contact anyone because I didn't have anyone's number, not even A's, as I had just changed my phone number and bought a new phone, so my friends' contact numbers were gone. But since I was closest to IE, I headed straight to A's house as the first place to find him so I could ask him to help me call and gather our friends because he was studying in Bangkok and probably still in contact with some friends in the group. When I arrived at A's house at around 7 p.m., I saw that the sitting room was dark, so I thought A must be in his bedroom. I walked to the front gate and could see the living room where Uncle and Auntie were staying. I saw that the light was on and Uncle and Auntie were sitting there. I twisted the doorknob to open the gate, but it was locked. Since I still had the key A gave me, I unlocked it and then greeted Uncle and Auntie. After that, I locked the gate for them. They seemed calm, not scolding me or anything. Then I turned left and entered the sitting room. I turned on the light and went to check A's room to see if he was there, but he wasn't. So I thought he would probably come back soon. I turned on the computer in the sitting room and sat there playing games, waiting for A to come home. Time passed until around 10 p.m. I saw A's uncle walk to the walkway in front of the sitting room door and he started doing the activity he liked. He stood with his arms outstretched facing outside the house and shouted loudly, "Get out!" The sound was very loud. The interval between each shout was about 30 seconds, and he would stand there doing that for about 30 minutes. Even though I had heard it often and was used to it, the loudness of his voice still made me jump sometimes, but I didn't pay attention and continued playing on the computer. Then his aunt walked over to me and asked, "Where's A.E.?" I didn't know how to answer because I didn't know where he was either, so I told her, "Oh, he went out to buy something, Auntie. He'll be back soon." She walked back to the living room where she was staying. As for Uncle, he was still standing and shouting outwards. But what was surprising was why he was standing there for so long today. It was 7 p.m. and now it was almost 11 p.m. He was still standing there shouting. In my heart, I wondered, doesn't Uncle worry that the neighbors will scold him? At that moment, A's aunt walked over to me again and asked the same question. "Where's A.E.?" I told her, "He'll be back soon, Auntie." But this time his aunt didn't walk away. She stood next to me a little behind me, standing there for almost 10 minutes. As for Uncle, he was still shouting. Since I was starting to get annoyed, I turned off the computer and went to wait for Ie in his room. Then I turned on a movie to watch. Because the room was enclosed and the sound from the movie was loud, I could hardly hear any sound from outside. I lay there watching movies until I accidentally fell asleep. Then I was startled awake by a knocking sound on the door. I looked at the clock and it was around 2 a.m. I thought Ie had come back, so I said, "Hey, don't knock. It's your house, just open it, I didn't lock it." After I finished speaking, I heard a soft voice saying, "Get out." I thought, didn't Uncle stop shouting yet? Doesn't he worry about the neighbors? But this time, why did the voice sound like it was inside the house? After Uncle's voice, there was another knocking sound on the door. So I got up to open it and saw that it was Auntie standing there. But what scared me and made me feel afraid was Uncle. Uncle was standing behind Auntie with a stern expression. Then Auntie asked, "Where's Ie?" Followed by Uncle's shouting voice, "Get out." They took turns back and forth. "Where's Ie? Get out. Where's Ie? Get out." I felt very scared. At that time, the area around the house was silent, only the sounds of Uncle and Auntie were still loud. I couldn't stand it anymore. I squeezed past Auntie and Uncle. Just as I was walking past them, Auntie grabbed my arm and asked, "Where's Ie?" Followed by Uncle's voice turning towards me and shouting, "Get out." I shook off Auntie's hand and quickly ran to get out of A's house, but since I had locked the gate, I couldn't open it immediately. While I was fumbling with the key, Uncle's voice followed me. "Get out. Get out, get out, get out." He was standing in the living room where he'd like to be, standing there and shouting like that. As for Auntie, she was walking towards me asking, "Where's Ie?" At that moment I was in a panic. My hands were trembling so much I could hardly insert the key. After I managed to get out of there, I ran as fast as I could to the entrance of A's alley. At the entrance of the alley there was a 7-Eleven convenience store. I sat in front of the 7-Eleven to compose myself and thought about what had happened. Was Auntie completely out of her mind? Why was Uncle acting like that towards me? Or had my other friends done something to make Uncle hate us during the 2 years I was away, to the point where he would chase us away like dogs? It was around almost 4 a.m. I didn't know where to go. Since the closest friend's house, my friend wasn't there and I was even chased out. So I sat in front of the 7-Eleven until morning. Then I went to see B, whose house was behind the high school we attended. He was the only friend I could go to. When I arrived at B's house, I saw him helping his mother set up their curry rice stall. I walked over to him. When he saw me, he asked, "Hey, how'd you get here? And why do you look so bad?" I'll tell you later, but do you have A's number? Call him for me and tell him to come here. I need a place to sleep. I haven't slept since last night." Okay. Go get some sleep first. I'll call A after I finish helping my mom sell. I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was 3 p.m. and I saw A and B sitting and talking. I quickly got up and told A, "Last night I went to your house and Uncle and Auntie almost drove me crazy." Then I told him what had happened. After I finished telling the story, A asked me, "How did you get into the house?" I replied, "With the key you gave me." Then A told me, "Listen to me. My uncle passed away 3 months ago. He had cancer. As for Auntie, after Uncle passed away, she refused to eat anything and her health deteriorated and she passed away 2 months after Uncle. As for me, after Auntie passed away, I didn't go back home much. I stayed at my friend's dorm, so I put a padlock on the front gate. You shouldn't have that key anymore. I was shocked for a moment and then said, "Hey, don't joke around with me, you fa," likely part of a curse or exclamation. Actually, at that moment my heart was already in my stomach, and I said, "If you don't believe me, go to the house with me." So I, A, and B went to A's house. When we got to the front gate, I saw that it was indeed locked with a padlock. A unlocked it and took us inside to see the pictures of Uncle and Auntie with their birth and death dates written on them hanging in the living room. At that moment, my legs went weak. I raised my hands to pay respects to the pictures of Uncle and Auntie. After that day, I had a fever for 3 days, and I never stepped foot in A's house again. To this day, I still remember the faces and voices of Uncle and Auntie standing in front of A's room clearly. Currently, A has moved back to work and live with his parents in Chiang Mai. As for Uncle and Auntie's house, it is still used occasionally when he visits Bangkok. And this is the whole story that happened. For things. A chilling touch, the bone doll. Now, I bring you a chilling tale that serves as a warning to those who are married or in relationships. Never consider betraying your loved ones, as the consequences may be far worse than you can imagine. Think about how it would feel if someone you love was unfaithful, the heartbreak, the searing pain. Selfish pleasure, however brief, can destroy a once happy home, as this story will demonstrate. Corncool was an attractive woman, though not extraordinarily beautiful. People who met her were drawn to her pleasant demeanor, gentle nature, kindness, and willingness to help others. She had been married to Samarn for 6 years, and they had 2 young children, an older daughter and a younger son. After their children were born, Corncool and Samarn decided that he would get a vasectomy. Samarn was handsome, quite the looker in fact, but he had a wandering eye. Women often fluttered around him, and Corncool knew it. Unable to keep him under constant surveillance, she thought the vasectomy might prevent potential complications. The couple worked for a large corporation at a provincial branch far from their hometowns. When Samarn learned his mother had fallen ill, he requested a transfer back to his hometown to care for her. Corncool arranged to follow him. On her first day at the new office, Corncool met an attractive woman who greeted her with a warm smile and escorted her to the manager's office to report in. Afterward, this woman showed Corncool to her workstation, which was close to her own. She introduced herself as Chuen Day, and the horrifying events I'm about to relate began from that very day. Chuen Day had fair skin, long hair, and a compact build, typical of many Thai women. Though she always smiled, Corncool noticed sadness in her eyes, making her seem intriguing and worth knowing. Corncool believed meetings weren't coincidental but destined. The 2 women, similar in age, connected immediately. Co-workers often saw them having lunch together, and they soon became close friends. Chuen Day also had a seemingly idyllic family. 2 boys about the same age as Corncool's children. On weekends, the women would take their children out together to malls or amusement parks. Chuen Day's husband Torpong worked as a senior architect. Corncool became close enough to the family that she called him Phi Tor. He was quite handsome, tall with fair skin and eyes that suggested a flirtatious nature. Chuen Day often told Corncool that Phi Tor was a womanizer who attracted many women, and they pursued him regardless of his marital status. She had frequent arguments with him over his philandering and occasionally confided in Corncool that she couldn't tolerate his behavior anymore. Corncool would console her friend, telling her to be patient, that things would pass. Despite this, Chuen Day remained distressed. unable to find a resolution. One Saturday morning, Corncool was awakened by her ringing phone. Answering, she heard Chwenruedi sobbing on the other end. She explained that she and Fitor had a terrible fight the night before because he had been secretly seeing another woman for some time, something Chwenruedi had just discovered. Fitor had rented a house for this woman, a widow with one child. Chwenruedi discovered this after finding unusual withdrawals from Fitor's bank account. When confronted, he confessed, leading to their explosive argument. By morning, Fitor had packed his belongings and driven away, presumably to live with the other woman. After finishing her story, Chwenruedi broke down in heavy sobs. She begged Corncool for help, saying she was ashamed to live as a woman abandoned by her husband. Corncool promised to try to help and asked her to remain calm. Chwenruedi's voice improved before she hung up. Corncool felt deeply sorry for her dear friend and discussed the situation with Samarn, her husband. He advised that while she could offer emotional support, she shouldn't get too involved in their marital problems. If they reconciled, it could create awkwardness. Corncool understood and drove to Chwenruedi's house. Upon arrival, she found her friend sitting alone, crying with reddened eyes. When Corncool asked about her children, Chwenruedi explained she had left them with relatives to shield them from the family crisis. After comforting Chwenruedi for a while, her friend suggested they look for Fitor, revealing his car had a tracking system installed. Corncool drove while Chwenruedi monitored the tracker, eventually locating his car parked in front of a small single-story rental house, likely where the widow and her child lived. They observed from their car until they were certain Fitor was inside. Chwenruedi grew anxious, wanting to confront him, but Corncool advised against it, suggesting instead that someone Fitor respected should speak with him. Chwenruedi agreed, and they drove back home. That evening, Chwenruedi called Onapa, Fitor's mother, and explained everything. Concerned for her grandchildren and not wanting them to come from a broken home, Onapa immediately came to see Chwenruedi and agreed to speak with her son at the rental house. The next morning, Chwenruedi asked Corncool to drive Onapa to the rental house, fearing her own hot temper might make things worse. Corncool agreed, and they drove to the location where she waited in the car while Onapa went inside to speak with Fitor and the woman. After a while, Onapa returned with a grim expression. She told Corncool that her son refused to return to his wife and children, suggesting the woman must have used black magic on him. "We need a powerful master to counter this," she said before instructing Corncool to drive back to Chwenruedi's house. 3 days later, Corncool received another call from Chwenruedi, asking her to drive Onapa to the rental house again. She agreed since it was her day off. After dropping her children at their extra classes, she drove to Chwenruedi's house, where she found Onapa waiting holding a paper bag. Corncool assumed it contained a gift, but when Onapa entered the car and opened the bag to retrieve something, she realized it was something else entirely. Onapa explained it was a bone ghost doll, designed to make people hate each other. It had been consecrated by a famous master. The two dolls were carved from human bones, two different corpses. Corncool glanced at the dolls with fear. They appeared to be carved from arm or leg bones, each about 6 inches long. One was carved as a male figure, the other female. They were bound together back to back with pins stuck through the chest area of both dolls. Corncool felt half believing, half skeptical. If the dolls truly worked as described, she would feel guilty about causing hatred between people. But having promised her friend she would help, she felt trapped and drove Onapa to the location as planned. After parking some distance from the rental house, Onapa outlined their strategy. They would enter and speak calmly with the couple. Corncool would stay inside and engage them in conversation while Onapa would find an excuse to step outside and bury the dolls somewhere on the property. Corncool agreed with trepidation and they approached the house. Onapa spoke with her son, telling him that even if he left his wife, he should still visit his sons occasionally since he remained their father. Then she pretended to search for her phone, saying she might have left it in the car. After Onapa left, Corncool chatted with Phi Tor and his new girlfriend about her children and Chwenruadi's sons. Everything proceeded according to plan, with neither Phi Tor nor his new partner suspecting Onapa's true intentions. Soon she returned, claiming she had called her grandson from outside. Then she suggested they leave. During the drive back, Onapa said, "Just wait, 3 to 7 days and you'll see results." After dropping Onapa at Chwenruadi's house, Corncool left, feeling guilty about her participation but also curious about what would happen. A few days later, as Corncool was preparing for work, her phone rang. It was Chwenruadi, crying. She reported that Phi Tor had called his mother to say goodbye. He had arranged a transfer to another province and had already packed, planning to leave that day with his new girlfriend. It seemed Chwenruadi and Phi Tor would never reconcile. Corncool thought the bone dolls hadn't had time to work their dark magic, and that was why things ended this way. Within a year, Chwenruadi found new love and remarried. Her new husband seemed like a good man who cared for her sons, gradually healing her pain until it disappeared completely. 5 years later, Chwenruadi's family continued happily with her new husband. She learned that Onapa had passed away. As for Phi Tor and the woman, after they moved away, Chwenruadi had no further news of them. Corncool still remembered the bone ghost dolls and felt guilty about her role in the incident, regardless of whether they had worked. In her heart, she felt she had committed a sin. On a day off, Corncool drove back to look at the rental house. Passing by, she noticed an old, weathered "For Rent" sign with vines growing over it. She slowed down and spotted a woman at the neighboring house watering plants in her front yard. Corncool approached and asked about the rental house next door. The woman, who introduced herself as Sunisa, said she had lived in her rental house for 7 to 8 years and had observed many people moving in and out of the neighboring property. No one stayed long. Married couples who moved in would fight violently until they separated. Sunisa first noticed the house's strangeness about 6 years earlier. A loving couple began arguing frequently, each accusing the other of infidelity, though both denied it. They fought daily until it became routine. A few days later, Sunisa noticed the house felt eerily silent. Strangely, the lights remained off every night as if no one lived there. She later learned the couple had abandoned the property. Soon after, the owner advertised for new tenants, and another married couple moved in. Initially, everything seemed normal, but within days, trouble arose. One night, Sunisa heard a loud argument followed by the sound of a car driving away. Looking outside, she saw a woman sitting alone, crying at the front door. Approaching to ask what happened, the woman explained she had returned from an errand to find her husband in bed with another woman. When she confronted him about his infidelity, he denied everything and accused her of being crazy. Enraged, she attacked him, prompting him to pack his belongings and drive away. Interestingly, the other woman hadn't left with him. The wife searched the house but found no trace of her, then broke down crying at the door as Sunisa had witnessed. While listening to this story, Sunisa felt a chill run down her spine and sensed someone watching them. Looking into the house through to the kitchen that aligned with the front door, she saw a white light resembling a man's face staring at them. After a moment, the face retreated as the white light gradually dimmed and vanished. That incident convinced Sunisa something was wrong with the house. After the woman moved out, another tenant soon arrived but left abruptly after just a few days. Subsequent tenants stayed briefly before leaving. Rumors about ghosts in the house, both male and female, began circulating, and no one had dared rent the place for several years. Hearing this story, Corncool felt increasingly uncomfortable and guilty. She wondered if the male and female apparitions causing couples to fight might be manifestations of the bone dolls. But she feared no one would believe her if she told the truth. They might think her insane. Digging up the dolls risked trespassing charges. After careful consideration, Corncool discussed everything with her husband Samarn. Believing his wife's account, he agreed they should excavate the bone dolls. The couple drove to the house in the middle of the night to avoid being seen and to minimize the risk of trespassing charges. They parked some distance away and carried digging tools, climbing over the fence into the property. Corncool told Samarn she didn't know exactly where Anapa had buried the dolls, but remembered she had walked toward the back of the house. They proceeded there, shining flashlights and looking for unusual patches of ground, though they knew finding the spot would be difficult after so much time. Using shovels and picks, they began digging randomly in the rectangular area behind the house, approximately 8 by 3 meters. After digging for some time without success, they noticed a slightly elevated section of ground. Oddly, this raised area was quite large, larger than the dolls would require, but they decided to dig there anyway. Corncool and Samarn dug more than half a meter deep, deeper than any other hole they had made, feeling certain the dolls must be there. After digging further, Samarn's shovel struck something with a loud sound, and their flashlights illuminated something white, resembling a skeleton. Indeed, they had uncovered human remains. The couple was shocked, realizing they had found a buried corpse, though they had no idea who had buried it, whose body it was, or when it had been interred. As they stared in horror, they noticed something beneath the remains: the bone ghost dolls. Regaining her composure, Corncool used her pick to extract the dolls, which Samarn placed in a bag before they hastily departed. They planned to take the dolls to a respected monk for guidance on how to properly dispose of them. As for the corpse, they thought someone would surely discover it soon enough. Corncool wondered how the body had gotten there. She theorized that someone who had once lived in the house must have killed a person and dug a hole to bury the body, accidentally discovering the dolls in the process and burying them together with the corpse. Years later, Corncool learned that the body found behind the rental house belonged to the woman who had been involved with Phi Tor when they lived there together. She thought the bone ghost dolls must have caused them to fight so violently that they killed each other. Shortly after the dolls were buried, Phi Tor had arranged a transfer to another location, claiming he was moving with his new girlfriend. No one knows what happened to Phi Tor now, but Corncool believes the karma from his actions will eventually find him. She makes merit and dedicates the good deeds to the dead woman, acknowledging her own role in the tragic events. She hopes the woman will forgive her and not seek vengeance either in this life or the next for what she had done. chilling touch spirit medium as the ghost commanded. My name is Ikafal, but my friends just call me Ek. I prefer Ek because it has a good meaning. It means number one in Thai. After finishing high school, I didn't continue my education. It wasn't for lack of money or ambition. In my community, most people didn't pursue higher education. They lived simple, sufficient lives with children helping their parents farm the land and raise livestock. The income was enough to get by. We had food to eat and necessities covered without bothering anyone. Life wasn't luxurious, but our stomachs were full. What more could I ask for? But this sort of life flowed like a lazy river, predictable, without excitement. Given my name, I wanted to be number one at everything, especially when it came to adventures beyond my village. That was the dream I chased. At 20 years old, my experience driving our old pickup truck to deliver manure, cattle dung, or occasionally selling produce from our garden had taught me how to handle a vehicle. I got my driver's license, passing the test easily. My dream began to materialize when a neighbor invited me to apply for a delivery job with a major shipping company that operated throughout Thailand. This meant I'd be responsible for delivering packages across various provinces on assigned routes. Once hired, I was given a company vehicle, a pickup truck modified with a large storage compartment that could hold numerous packages. The process was straightforward. Customers would call the company to schedule pickups from their homes, paying for the service up front. Employees would collect these packages and bring them to our facility, where they'd be sorted by delivery zones. Once loaded onto my truck, it was my responsibility to deliver each package according to a detailed manifest that included destinations, recipient names, phone numbers, and with modern GPS tracking, ensuring nothing got lost. I think package delivery services and online shopping are quite convenient. They save money and hassle, eliminating the need to travel for purchases. Initially, the company assigned me local routes to help me get comfortable with the job. Later, they'd expand my territory to the north or south, depending on how management divided the zones. This worked well for me. I needed to gain experience first and prove myself trustworthy. I approached my work with dedication, genuinely enjoying it. I'm naturally service-oriented, communicative, and consider myself quite personable. Today followed the usual routine. I arrived at the company early in the morning, received my delivery manifest, and walked to my assigned vehicle in the warehouse. The truck was fully loaded. I'd clearly have many stops to make. I drove out from the facility and checked my route. Today I was assigned deliveries in a neighboring province, less than 100 kilometers away, a small province in northern Thailand. My cargo varied from refrigerator-sized boxes to tiny palm-sized packages. Most items didn't specify their contents, so I handled everything carefully, paying special attention to anything marked fragile. Before each delivery, I'd call ahead to confirm the recipient was home. If they weren't, sometimes a relative could sign instead. Modern delivery confirmation is simple, just a finger signature on a phone screen that provides proof of delivery to the company. I spent the day traveling between various villages, and by nightfall I was down to my final package. Following my GPS, I made several turns, driving deeper into what seemed like increasingly remote territory. I called the contact number and was relieved when a woman answered, confirming she was home. I continued along a dirt road flanked by lush green rice paddies. The rice was forming but not yet ripe. Further along, I passed rubber tree plantations extending on both sides of the road. At the end of this forested stretch, I reached the entrance to the village where I needed to make my final delivery. I called again for more specific directions. She instructed me to continue straight until I reached the village temple, then turn left at a large tree she called a fung tree. Looking up, I could see enormous beehives, at least 10 massive nests. After passing 2 more houses, I would find her home, the third one, recognizable by its bamboo-woven gate and 3 bamboo clumps in front. When I reached the gate and peered into the property, I saw a large house, a traditional Thai wooden structure that looked quite old. The lower floor had been extended with brick, left unplastered. Something about the house gave me an inexplicable feeling of loneliness. With dusk settling in, the atmosphere felt eerily desolate. After a moment, a woman in her late 30s emerged. She was dressed like a villager, wearing a sarong and a faded yellow blouse. She smiled in greeting as I retrieved a small package about the size of my palm and handed it to her. "Are you Suni?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I'm her older sister Suri." "You can sign for it," I said, extending my phone for her signature. As she signed, I noticed her face was tense with worry. Her hand trembled slightly. Then she asked, "Who sent this?" I pointed to the package. "The sender's information is on the front there." She peered at it and murmured, "There's even a phone number." Looking up at me, she made an unusual request. "Would you mind staying while I open this? I don't know who sent it or what's inside. You could be a witness." She handed the package back to me to help open it. I agreed, thinking I wasn't in any rush to get home and this was my last delivery anyway. Using my box cutter, I carefully sliced open the package, revealing newspaper wrapping inside. I unwrapped about 7 or 8 layers until I reached a plastic container about the size of a lime. She reached for it and opened the container herself. Inside was a single silver coin, similar to a commemorative piece. There was no letter or message included. I stood watching, not particularly surprised, but her reaction was alarming. She began trembling violently, looking as if she might faint. I helped her to a bench in front of the house. When she regained her composure, she explained, "Suni, my younger sister, committed suicide 3 months ago. In about 10 days, it will be the 100th day since her death, and I'm preparing a merit-making ceremony for her. This coin, it's the mouth money that Sunny's husband placed in her mouth before burial, along with other valuable possessions." She continued, "About a week after the burial, grave robbers desecrated her tomb, stealing all the valuables her husband and relatives had buried with her, intended for her use in the afterlife according to our beliefs. They took gold necklaces, bracelets, and other valuables, including the coin that had been placed in her mouth. Our family reported it to the police, but after all this time, they haven't caught the perpetrators. This might be a clue to finding those responsible." I suggested she call the phone number listed on the package. She dialed, and the person who answered identified himself as Somsak, a psychiatric attendant at a nearby provincial hospital. He explained that one of his patients had given him the package to send, providing Sure's name and address. Learning this, Suri arranged to meet Somsak to speak with this patient. I offered to accompany her, as the next day happened to be my day off. The following morning, I drove my old pickup to Suri's house, and we traveled together to the psychiatric hospital. Upon arrival, Suri asked at the reception desk about Somsak and learned he was distributing meals to patients in Building 3. We requested permission to see him, and after introductions, Somsak pointed to a man sitting among a group of patients. Each patient displayed different symptoms. One stared blankly at leaves, another smiled to himself, but the man Somsak indicated sat with his head down, eyes fixed on the floor. "He seems normal," Suri remarked. "He has good days and bad days," Somsak replied. "Sometimes he's quite lucid." Somsak beckoned to the man. "Nat, come talk with us for a moment." When Nat heard his name, he looked up and walked over. Suri introduced herself. "I'm Suni's older sister." At the mention of Suni's name, Nat visibly panicked. "I've returned it already. Don't do anything to me. I've given it back." Somsak reassured him that no one would harm him. They just wanted to ask questions. Nat calmed somewhat and Suri asked him to tell his story. After a moment's hesitation, Nat began his account. One night he, Note, and Wit had gathered to smoke marijuana. In their altered state, Note suggested they dig up Suni's grave, having heard valuables were buried with her. Fueled by intoxication and greed, Wit agreed enthusiastically. Nat, fearful of ghosts, refused to participate in the actual digging but agreed to keep watch. Note told him to stay at the entrance as a lookout, sparing him from approaching the grave itself. After some time, Note and Wit emerged from the grave with their spoils, giving Nat a gold bracelet and a silver coin as his share. Nat didn't know what else they had taken, as Note and Wit divided the remaining items between themselves before they all went their separate ways. As Nat continued, his story grew increasingly fragmented. He explained that a few days later he started seeing a woman standing at the foot of his bed every night. She never spoke, just stared at him with hollow eyes. After the third night, he attempted suicide by hanging himself but was discovered by his mother. Upon his admission to the psychiatric hospital, he begged the nurses to help him return what he'd stolen. The gold bracelet was already gone. He'd sold it, but he still had the silver coin. He insisted it must be returned to Suni's family, providing them with Sure's information. After Somsak sent the package, Nat's nightly visitations from the woman stopped. Nat then revealed the fates of his accomplices. Note had died in a motorcycle accident just a week after the grave robbery. Wit had become mysteriously ill with an undiagnosed fever that caused him to waste away until his death 3 weeks later. After hearing everything, Suri said she wouldn't press charges, viewing it as a way to make merit for her sister. She mentioned the upcoming 100th day ceremony, and Nat immediately asked to attend so he could apologize to Suni personally. Somsak said he would check with Nat's family in the hospital for permission, though he wasn't sure if Nat's relatives would bring him. Suri offered to arrange transportation and asked if I would drive Nat to the ceremony. I agreed. 10 days later, I arrived at the hospital to pick up Nat. Somsak accompanied him, explaining that Nat's family had refused to participate but had given permission for him to attend with supervision. During the hour-long drive to the ceremony, Nat sat silently in the back seat, occasionally muttering apologies to an unseen presence. When we arrived at Suri's house, the ceremony was already underway. 9 monks were chanting blessings while family members offered food. Suri welcomed us and directed Nat to a spot where he could participate in the merit making. After the monks finished their meal and left, Suri led Nat to a small shrine she had prepared for Suni, with her photograph surrounded by offerings. Nat knelt before it, tears streaming down his face as he whispered his apologies. What happened next still gives me chills. As Nat prostrated himself before the shrine, a cool breeze suddenly swept through the room, though all windows and doors were closed against the midday heat. Several candles flickered simultaneously, and I swear the photograph of Suni briefly changed expression, from solemn to something resembling a faint smile. Nat must have felt something too. He rose with a look of profound relief, as if an immense weight had been lifted from him. "She forgives me," he whispered. "She says she forgives me." On the drive back to the hospital, Nat was transformed, alert, coherent, even conversational. He spoke about his hopes to eventually leave the hospital and rebuild his life, acknowledging the terrible mistake he had made, and his determination to make amends through good deeds. 6 months later, I delivered another package to Suri's house. She invited me in for tea and shared the news that Nat had been released from the hospital and was now working at a local temple, helping maintain the grounds. He still visited Suni's grave weekly, always bringing fresh flowers. As for the silver coin, Suri had it blessed by monks and placed it in Suni's spirit house in her garden. Sometimes, she told me, on quiet evenings when the breeze rustles through the bamboo, she feels her sister's presence, not vengeful or angry but peaceful, having found the closure she needed. In my job as a delivery driver, I've carried countless packages across northern Thailand, but none has affected me like that small parcel containing a single silver coin. It reminds me that sometimes what we deliver isn't just an object, but something much more significant. A chance for redemption, for forgiveness, for peace. And whenever I drive past a cemetery at dusk now, I always slow down, offering a silent prayer of respect. Not out of fear, but acknowledgement, because I've learned firsthand that some connections and some deliveries transcend the boundary between the living and the dead. A chilling touch, the new recruit's ordeal, ghosts in the camp. Hello, I am 4. I am a military conscript at a camp in Bangkok. The living conditions for conscripts here are similar to other places, but perhaps some training regimens are stricter. The military training for us is divided into 2 companies, Company 3 and Company 4. I am in Company 3. The building for Company 3 looks much newer than Company 4, both externally and internally. It's almost like a new house. Its condition is very new. Even the bathrooms have beautiful tiles and walls with vibrant colors, which surprised me why it looks so good. Perhaps Company 4 with its different condition hasn't been renovated yet. But I didn't dare to ask any seniors or sergeants because I was afraid they would think I was asking too many questions and I would be punished. After that, I practiced the daily drills, also known as Rob Chore, until 7 p.m. That's the time for instruction where the trainer explains the regulations for daily life and has new conscripts like us lead the evening prayer before going to bed. At that time, I had a group of friends who were also new conscripts. Dam, New, Zach, Porn, and It. Our group was considered very close and tight-knit. If we were comfortable together. If we were punished, we took responsibility together. While listening to the instruction from the trainer warned us, "You guys see the spirit house behind Company 3 next to the large Bodhi tree? They're all new spirit houses, empty." Out of curiosity mixed with fear at that time, I briefly asked, "Is there anything we need to be careful about, Sergeant?" The sergeant is the new recruit trainer here. He is responsible for training new recruits. Then the sergeant laughed for a while and said, "You guys don't need to know. If you know, you'll just worry for nothing. Besides, it's something that affects the training unit. It might make parents worry. Let's just say, don't disrespect it or try to interact with it, and most importantly, if you hear anything, don't acknowledge it at all." The last sentence from the sergeant sounded serious and worried, as if we were going to intrude into some restricted area of the government. And it seemed the sergeant wanted to ease the worries of the new recruits and prevent them from overthinking, so he jokingly said, "Or if anyone really wants to know, have him do 1,000 push-ups for me and I'll tell you in detail. How about it?" Doing that many push-ups is impossible, especially for new recruits like us. We could only do a few dozen. After that, the sergeant changed the subject according to the schedule. My friend Nu asked us in the group, "What do you think it is? Why can't they tell us and leave us wondering like this? How is this supposed to make us feel comfortable?" Damn added, "They probably don't want us to do anything unintentional, I guess. They're afraid something bad will happen." Me, Zach, and Porn just sat there listening and thinking. As for it, he was the quietest person in the group. He rarely spoke unless necessary because he had lived at a temple since he was born. Things like this probably didn't affect him much, but I, being someone who cared about my friends, jokingly said to it, "What's wrong?" Sitting there looking gloomy. "Did your girlfriend leave you?" But it just turned to look at my face and smiled a little. That's all. I couldn't help but think about how I could make this friend feel better and not so serious. The only thing I could do was always invite him to go with me whenever I went anywhere. There were also other types of new recruits here who would often get themselves into trouble and drag their friends down with them. They liked to sneak out to smoke behind the latrines regularly. Sometimes they would come up with crazy ideas. In their group, there were 3 leaders who were particularly troublesome: Game, Tong, and Mu. The 3 of them would often get us punished, whether it was writing on the bathroom walls, not taking the drill seriously, or sneaking off to sleep behind the company. Their behavior truly made everyone see them as a problem. One night, after the duty officer had checked the barracks, they challenged each other to do something I didn't expect them to dare to do. Game challenged Tong. "Hey Tong, remember what that show-off sergeant told you about that tree?" Tong replied, "Oh yeah, I remember. Listening to him ramble about something crazy, nonsense. What spirit house? There's nothing there." Mu added, "So you don't believe what that sergeant said? You're not scared at all." Tong replied, "I'm not scared. What history? The spirit houses are new. There's nothing there." "Show me," Game challenged. "Then try peeing on the Bodhi tree next to the spirit house for me to see if you're really tough." "Yeah, right. Are you tough?" Mu added. "If you're a coward, I'll take your share." Being teenagers full of bravado mixed with pride, Tong retorted with a curse and said, "Just this? I'll show you." So they went to the new spirit house and Tong actually did it. After Tong finished peeing on the Bodhi tree, a strong wind blew. The dry leaves that had fallen on the ground were carried away with the swirling dust, making everything dusty. This startled them, and they quickly ran back up to the barracks as if their lives depended on it. But while running Game, the one who challenged Tong, saw something out of the corner of his eye for a moment. Even though it was only for a brief second, it was enough for him to know that what he saw was a woman in a white dress with very long hair. She was looking down slightly and smiling like a psychopath. After that, a voice followed them saying, "You will reap what you sow. I will take you all to be my servants." Everyone heard the voice the same way. The voice made Game so scared that he stumbled on the stairs and fell, hitting his elbow on the ground and breaking it. But he quickly got up and continued running until he reached the barracks. He tried to force himself to sleep. The next morning, a senior noticed the wound on Game's elbow and asked what happened. He then told the senior what he had encountered but didn't say what he had done. The senior then said, "Oh, they must have come to greet you. Everyone sees them. But you probably didn't do anything foolish, right?" Tong replied hesitantly, I went to pee on that Bodhi tree, sir." Upon hearing that, the senior's face turned visibly shocked and he said, "What have you guys done? Do you know what you're messing with, you fools?" This reached the ears of the trainer, causing a commotion. A ceremony for forgiveness had to be arranged, and the trainer ordered those involved to be transferred to a different unit. After that, a senior who was worried about other junior recruits doing something reckless like this again told us the remaining recruits some past events. He said that once a private was stressed during training because he had family problems, debt back home, and his girlfriend left him. One day he hanged himself in the barracks. There was also another private who wanted to test his luck. He disrespected the spirits and did something similar to what happened last night. Not long after that, that private was possessed by a ghost. He convulsed, his eyes rolled back, and he turned yellow. Everyone was startled and tried to help him until he returned to normal, but after only a few days, that private drank bathroom cleaner and killed himself. The reason is still unknown. That's not all. There was another person who died recently. This person had a heart condition. A senior overworked him during repairs until he was exhausted and threatened him that if he told anyone, he would be harassed and messed with even more. That recruit was very stressed and didn't dare to tell anyone. And he somehow decided that when everyone went out for training, he would jump from the barracks building. He fell and broke his neck and died. These stories made the junior recruits who heard them get goosebumps. Besides the new spirit houses, there are probably many ghosts here. Time passed until one night, after everyone had gone to bed, my friend Porn had to pee, so he got up from bed to go to the bathroom downstairs. But as he was walking down the stairs, his eyes happened to see a man with a rope around his neck walking on the barracks balcony, dragging the rope back and forth. Porn stopped walking in shock. His arms and legs trembled and he stood still for a while before the man walked over and said to him, "You saw me, didn't you?" At that moment, Porn was very scared and didn't know what to do. He just stood there trembling, tears streaming down his face uncontrollably. Then the man laughed and said to him, "I'm lonely. I've been here for a long time. Come be my friend." That voice made Porn get goosebumps. He tried to gather his senses and said with tears, "Please take me. I don't want to die. Please, I beg you, go to a better place, your place." When he finished speaking, everything went silent. After a moment, a voice shouted, "Porn, what are you doing?" Porn slowly turned to look towards the voice and knew it was its voice. When he turned to look around, he didn't see the man anymore. So he told it what he had encountered, but it just said, "Okay, I'm used to this kind of thing too. Are you going to the bathroom? I'll go with you." After that, the two of them went to the bathroom and then went back to bed as usual. The next morning, when we heard about what happened to Porn, we were scared and couldn't help but worry about him because his face looked very bad. We could only comfort him and tell him that next time they should go in a group and not go alone. That way they could help each other if anything happened. Porn didn't answer, he just nodded his head. After the morning training, we had drill practice as usual, but we couldn't help but wonder why we hadn't seen it. Another friend told us, "Oh, he's not feeling well lately. He hasn't been training with us. I heard he was transferred to help with clerical work." We were a little envious but understood that he probably had some problems, so we didn't think anything of it. We continued training like this every day until it was almost over. That night, while we were about to go to bed, I suddenly smelled the scent of a corpse. The smell was so strong that it was overpowering. But I tried not to think about it and just closed my eyes to sleep. But then, in the middle of the night, I was startled awake. I heard footsteps walking on the balcony. After a moment, there was the sound of running and then a sound like someone being punished by being made to do push-ups. But I thought someone must have gone to the bathroom at the wrong time and was being punished. I tried to close my eyes again, but then I was startled when someone grabbed my leg. I turned to look and saw that it was it. He said to me, "You're awake. Aren't you going to sleep? Take me down to pee." I got out of bed to walk with him. As we walked down the stairs to the lower floor, he said, "Hey, are you afraid of ghosts?" I replied, "Yeah, I'm scared." "What's wrong with you asking now? I'm already scared to death." It chuckled a little and said again, "Have you ever heard that if you want to see a ghost, you have to look through your legs?" I told him, "Yeah, I've heard that too, but stop asking. I can't even sleep, I'm already paranoid." After we finished our business in the bathroom and were about to go back up, it still wouldn't stop. He continued, "Why were you so scared just now? Ghosts are all around us. Just depends on whether they want someone to see them or not." From being scared, I started to get annoyed that he wouldn't stop talking about this, so I told him, "Yeah, whatever you say, I'm going back." But he grabbed my arm and said, "Don't go up yet. Let them go first." At that moment, I was very confused who they were. When he saw my puzzled expression, he said, "The duty officer. Don't you want to be punished?" I leaned in to listen and could hear the sound of someone doing push-ups intermittently. The two of us sat and waited until the sound disappeared. While we were talking, it said he wanted to go back home and missed his home. He wanted to see the revered monk and do things. He had lived at the temple before, so the temple was like a second home to him. We talked for a while and then we saw that the sound we heard earlier had disappeared. So we went back up to sleep. The next morning we trained a little more until the test was finished. It was time for us to go home. My friends damn knew Zach and Porn said, "Finally we're going home. We haven't been able to sleep here. We'll go home and sleep until we're completely rested." It also said that whenever he went to the bathroom, he would tell them not to go up yet because someone was being punished. At first, I thought I was the only one who experienced that, but others did too. So I asked, then who was being punished? But no one knew. So we went to ask a military instructor who regularly slept there. We asked him who was being punished almost every night, but we didn't know where they were being punished because no one had ever seen them. The military instructor laughed and said, "You guys still haven't gotten used to it. Don't you know what happens in the middle of the night?" And he left us wondering like that. As for my friends, they didn't think much of it because they were looking forward to going home. But in my head, I kept thinking about what had happened until around 6 p.m. We were getting ready to go home. I felt someone grab my shoulder, so I turned and saw it. He said to me, "Going back?" I said, "Yes." "Aren't you going back?" but he replied, "I'm staying here. I can't go back yet." I was very confused by what he said, but before I could ask him, he spoke first. "Remember when I told you about seeing a ghost? When you look through your legs?" I nodded. Then he continued, "And it seems you get haunted often." He made me even more confused about what he was talking about. The more I talked to him, the less I understood. Then he said, "You should try it." And he looked towards the company building. I was both scared and curious, but I decided to try looking as he said. I looked through my legs towards the company building. I was scared and nervous, but I didn't see anything. Out of curiosity, I turned to ask it, who was standing next to me even though I was still looking down. "What did you mean?" "Oh my God." I almost couldn't believe my eyes. I saw it covered in blood, his clothes torn. The left side of his face was covered in blood. His body was bruised all over. He smiled, laughed, and said to me, "Do you believe me now that you've been haunted for a long time?" That image stayed with me and made me unable to forget it at all. Time passed until I was transferred to another company. I started to learn about the haunted stories of this place. It made me realize that every night I heard the sound of someone doing push-ups intermittently. It was actually the sound of people who jumped from the barracks roof and died, repeating themselves. That's why it didn't want us to go up. As for it, he had actually passed away some time ago. The military instructor told us that he died from being overworked during repairs until he was stressed and died in the barracks. But he still wouldn't leave and would often appear to the new recruits. That's why the new recruits thought he was also a new recruit. And late at night, he would often appear near the stairs when people went to the bathroom. As for the new spirit houses near the old Bodhi tree, they have been there for a long time. They are probably the guardians of that area. I heard from a friend who wasn't in my group that whenever he went down to the bathroom when he looked at the spirit house, he would see a woman with long hair and a white dress standing with her back to him at the spirit house. Sometimes she would be crying. Sometimes she would be looking down and then turn to look. There was a senior who disrespected her and was slapped by her. He could only mutter that he would take her with him, that she wanted to test him. He was minding his own business and she bothered him. Until a monk had to be invited to sprinkle holy water and perform a ritual to get rid of her. That senior almost didn't make it either. That's what they say. Don't believe it. Don't disrespect it. After listening to this story, how do you feel? You can comment below. For new members who haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the subscribe button to follow, and don't forget to click the bell icon to be notified of our new videos before anyone else. And we will meet again in the next video.